Have you ever felt like you're pouring everything you have into a relationship only to feel it slipping through your fingers like sand? That was my life. My name is Mark, and I thought I had it all. A beautiful wife, Sarah, a home we built together, and a future that seemed as bright as the morning sun. But a shadow was creeping in, a shadow I couldn't see until it had nearly swallowed everything whole. It started subtly, as these things often do. A text message she'd quickly hide. A late night at the office that became a little too frequent. I'd ask, and she'd have a reason. Always plausible, always just reasonable enough to push my doubts away. "It's just a demanding project, Mark," she'd say, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. You know how it is. I did know. I also knew my wife, and this wasn't her. The warmth was fading, replaced by a polite distance. We had been high school sweethearts. We grew up together, navigated college together, and built a life from scratch. Our home was filled with photos of our journey, goofy teenage smiles, graduation gowns, our wedding day where we both cried tears of joy. We promised forever, and for years, I never doubted that promise. But now, it felt like I was living with a stranger who just happened to look like the woman I loved. The real gut punch came on our anniversary. I had planned a surprise weekend getaway to the same place I proposed. I bought her a new dress, booked our favorite restaurant, and even arranged for time off from her work, or so I thought. I came home early, flowers in hand, my heart thumping with excitement. But the house was empty. A note on the counter simply said, "Something came up at work. Ranch love. S. Love S." It felt so cold, so impersonal. That night, I didn't sleep. I just stared at the ceiling, replaying every moment, every excuse, every distant look. The next morning, I did something I never thought I'd do. I looked at our shared phone bill. There was one number, called and texted dozens of times a day, at all hours. It wasn't a work number. My hands shook as I typed it into a search engine. The name that popped up was Daniel, a guy from her office I'd met once at a company picnic. My stomach twisted into a knot. The demanding project was Daniel. The late nights weren't at her desk. They were with him. The realization hit me like a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. I wanted to scream, to smash something, to confront her. But when she walked through the door that morning, looking tired and avoiding my gaze, I just froze. I saw the woman I had loved for half my life, and all I could think was, how do I fix this? I didn't confront her, not yet. I thought, maybe if I try harder, if I remind her of what we have, she'll come back to me. I started cooking her favorite meals, leaving little notes in her car, suggesting date nights. I was trying to hold our marriage together with both hands, while she was holding another man's hand behind my back. Each effort I made was met with a polite, but hollow, thank you. I was showering a statue with affection, hoping it would come to life. One evening, I suggested we look at our wedding album. She hesitated, but eventually sat down next to me on the couch. As I turned the pages, I told stories about each photo, about how I felt that day, how much I loved her. I watched her face, searching for a flicker of the old Sarah. For a moment, I saw it. A tear welled up in her eye. "Mark, ... double quotes," she started, her voice breaking, but then her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and the wall went back up. "I'm just tired," she said, getting up and leaving me alone with our memories. The breaking point was a few weeks later. She said she was going on a work retreat for the weekend. I knew it was a lie. A friend of mine who knew I was struggling happened to see her. She wasn't at a conference center. She was at a cozy bed and breakfast 2 towns over, and she wasn't alone. He sent me a photo. It was blurry, taken from a distance, but it was clear enough. It was her and Daniel holding hands, laughing as they walked inside. Seeing that photo, my denial shattered into a million pieces. There was no fixing this. There was no trying harder. I had been watering a dead plant, hoping for a miracle. The grief was overwhelming, but underneath it, a new feeling started to grow. Resolve. I deserved more than this. I deserved honesty. I deserved respect. When she came back, pretending to be exhausted from team-building exercises, I didn't play along. I had printed the photo and left it on the kitchen table. When she saw it, all the color drained from her face. There were no more excuses, no more lies. The truth, ugly and painful, was finally out in the open. The conversation that followed was the hardest of my life. There were tears, accusations, and finally, a confession. She said she felt lost, that she didn't know who she was anymore, and that Daniel made her feel seen. I told her she hadn't just gotten lost, she had destroyed the map we were supposed to be following together. We separated that day. The weeks that followed were a blur of packing boxes and talking to lawyers. Every object in our home held a memory, and packing them away felt like I was packing away parts of myself. It was agony. But with each box I sealed, I also felt a strange sense of liberation. I was no longer living in a state of anxious hope, trying to fix something that was irreparably broken. The healing process has been long and hard. There were days I could barely get out of bed, and nights I spent just staring at old photos, wondering where it all went wrong. I had to learn to separate my identity from being Sarah's husband. I started therapy, reconnected with old friends, and threw myself into hobbies I had let slide. I started hiking, something I'd always loved, and found peace in the solitude of the mountains. I learned that you can't force someone to love you, and you can't hold a relationship together on your own. It takes two people, both fully committed. Trying to save a one-sided marriage is like trying to clap with one hand. You just end up looking foolish and feeling empty. Today, I'm in a much better place. The pain is still there, like a scar that reminds me of a deep wound, but it no longer controls me. I'm rebuilding my life, piece by piece, on a foundation of self-respect and honesty. I don't know what the future holds, but for the first time in a long time, I'm looking forward to it. My story is one of heartbreak, but it's also one of survival. It's a reminder that even when your world falls apart, you can find the strength to build a new one. Thank you for listening. If you've been through something similar, know that you're not alone and it does get better. Take care of yourselves.